When choosing gauge wheel designs, it's best to avoid the ones that lack cushioning. The one shown here is solid rubber without any internal air cavity, which means they are a lot harder and the soil has less opportunity to push back, which worsens the compaction of the sidewall. The lack of cushioning also translates into more vibration of the row unit and metering mechanism. Instead, the gauge tires that have been standard in the U.S. for several decades, particularly the 4.5-inch wide tires, as well as many narrower ones, do have internal air cavities, sometimes called semi-pneumatic tires. Stick with these and you'll be much better off. As to width, the narrow gauge wheels do ride over fewer stalks, root balls, and other mulch cover, especially if row cleaners are moving at least part of the unattached mulch beyond the gauge wheel's path. So the narrows can provide more consistent depth and less row unit chatter, as well as flattening less stubble. However, the worst compaction comes from the outside edge of the gauge wheel, and the narrows therefore relocate this compaction much closer to the row, which compresses sidewalls more, making them more difficult to break up with spoked closing wheels. So don't assume that narrow gauge tires are automatically better on planters. Maintaining sidewall integrity also requires that a gauge wheel's inner lip be up against the blade during planting. That last part is key, during planting. You'll want to adjust the gauge wheel so its inner lip is up close to the blade, and this may require taking the slop out of the gauge wheel pivot point with a kit such as RK Products supplies. And again, think about what happens during planting. If blade flex occurs, it is pulling the blade inward away from the gauge wheel you so carefully adjusted, as demonstrated here. That's one more reason to control blade flex. Keeping the gauge wheel up tight against the blade and vice versa will also greatly diminish problems with mud getting in behind the gauge wheels. If you accomplish that, you probably won't need scrapers for the blades anymore. Many people omit the scrapers entirely when they cure these other problems. But if you still have issues with mud getting in behind the gauge wheel, you might consider a gauge wheel with a slotted rim.